Hey friends, welcome to Ask Shane B. I'm Jeremy Jakwa, joined here as always by Shane Barnard from Shane & Shane. What's up, dude?
Hey, man.
How are you?
I'm doing great.
Great, man. Well, listen, today we've got not so much a question that was emailed in, but really just something I think is worth talking about that I think a lot of people process a lot, think about a lot, and will be really helpful to the folks tuning in.
Yes.
So just want to talk a little bit about all things screens, lights, smoke,
AV,
all of it. Things that can be really helpful if used rightly and not helpful if used wrongly. But just want your thoughts on,
Yep.
I mean, you've led for over 20 years, a lot of really big conferences,
Yep.
big churches, big events, whatever, where you've seen the full spectrum of all of those resources. So how have you seen those things used well? How have you seen them used poorly? And just kind of what's your general view on how to use these things strategically? And just some helpful thoughts on how we can think about those types of resources in our church.
Absolutely. This is a popular question that we get here and there as we travel around. Let me just start with an experience that I had one time, and I'll keep it pretty ambiguous. But
Names have been changed to
yeah.
Yeah.
So I went. This all happened within a 12-hour time frame. I went to see a Broadway show with my wife, and it was amazing. It was amazing. It was called Motown. I'll let that out of the bag, just because it was about.
So we know you were in New York. You saw Motown.
Motown has traveled.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That's my assumption.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I actually don't know if they have, but
Okay.
maybe this particular time they did. Okay.
So much for ambiguous.
Right.
Sorry.
And I just say that because the whole thing was about the inauguration of the pop industry.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was about music, okay? And it was just, I found myself just going, surely what I'm hearing with my ears is, the result of 2 years of post-production crafting music for this thing, And I haven't been to many Broadways, but, sure enough, the show is over, the actors bow, and then, the biggest burst of applause came for the band, which played the songs. You got Michael Jackson, Stevie Wonder. I mean, it's like that played the songs like kind of better than the songs were played.
Yeah.
And everybody just erupted. But and so that was my that was how I entered into this 12-hour time period. And then we went to a church service, and it was a time for the music deal. And the music was okay. It was like semi, solid. How do I say? Good.
Sure.
It was good.
It was
For, your church band.
Yeah.
It was good. It was average. Let me say it like that,
Okay.
which is good. I would say that's still good.
Sure.
And I had a visual audio experience. And so this is just, 8 hours later. And while I was having that visual audio experience, I just began to contrast the two. And it was just a really unique thing. Because on one hand, 8 hours earlier, I was in... So guys, what has just happened, if you're watching, is our screen just went black. But that's okay.
It's not the end of the world.
I mean, who needs a logo? Or a signal?
Who needs a logo?
Or, someone who runs the worship initiative that knows anything about laptops or how they're supposed to be
who even knows?
Used, or even how to turn it on, or...
It shouldn't have turned on. There it is. It's back. Very exciting.
Okay, so I'm just keep going. So there was a contrast. I'm standing there in this worship service, and I'm just thinking back on what happened 8 hours earlier, and then what is happening currently. And 8 hours earlier, I was at a place where they were telling a story, and it was a decent story. It wasn't really the story that I loved. It was like the music. I just wanted to like watch this drummer.
Mm-hmm.
The story was good. I mean, obviously, it's a great story. That's why there's a Broadway show about it.
Sure,
but it's not the greatest story I've ever heard.
Yeah,
the music really came
was
along.
The star.
It was like, man, it was a star, right?
Yeah.
So it was a decent story, and it was supported by fantastic, awe-inspiring music, none of which I ever saw with my eyes. So I got to watch the story, but I never saw anyone play an instrument that supported the story.
Yeah.
And now
they're all down in the
orchestra pit. Now I'm in a different room. We're talking about the greatest story of all time. In fact, without this story, I don't think we would have the greatest Broadway's ever written. I mean, it has inspired good stories.
Yep.
So it is the greatest story in human existence, supported by, it was people doing the best they can musically, but what my eyes saw was 27 feet tall musicians. This is what my eyes were looking at. So I was singing about the greatest story, but visually my eyes were looking at tight clothes, attractive people, passionate faces. If I would have been deaf, I would have not known what they were singing or talking about. Maybe in an awkward kind of a sense. And I just was confused. And it actually gave me a new, like after I left that, I'm just like, oh my gosh. I mean, I just felt the responsibility in a deeper way to go, this is a big deal. And like because I lead at a church with quite possibly the largest screens in the country. and all the way around, AV tech, it's all really great stuff. And what am I going to support this story with?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that was very distracting for me. I mean, it's fine. I just shut my eyes. Tempted to open them, to like just get into looking at people and things and letting my mind wander here and there. The song we were singing, it's probably the first time I'd ever heard it, is Scandal of Grace. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Scandal of Grace. Which could be a whole other podcast on what do you put on a screen when you're singing Scandal of Grace? And so, man, I would just encourage us, all of us, and as we think about, here's what God's given us to make His name famous. Here's the mediums that God's given us to make Jesus look great and to help people talk to Jesus. And so like when we're singing, we're looking to give people the real thoughts that they are coming boldly before the throne of grace and they're actually having a conversation with God. And so, which is, again, and that's a whole nother podcast too, of like, we're putting language and we're putting images in front of these folks that are either helping or harming them from like moving toward this man, and we're representing him either rightly or wrongly. And I think I don't think there's a right answer and a wrong answer. Let me just say that. Just to free you up if you got, attractive people on a stage and you got video cameras on and you're listening to this. Let me just free you up. Like, I don't think there's a right and wrong answer. We still go places and even though that we do the best we can to ask them not to put us up on these screens, we get put up on the screens, and
sure, the
words are on the lower third, and and I'm okay. It's fine. It's just I'm going to fit in. I'm not going to it's not necessarily about me being on a screen. It's about asking the question, what is helpful on somebody coming around a lyric and finding Jesus in that lyric and seeing the scripture through that lyric and worshiping the God who is God, like the very God of very God, who's real, whose presence lives within that person, and they are going to the throne. Like, what are we putting in front of people to help that? And I know that we could have a discussion if we had a couple other folks here of like, we put people up there to help model what it looks like. And I mean, I've had those conversations, and I think those are good and healthy. But I think we would serve our people well if we got 20 people from 20 different backgrounds and got them into a room and just said, is it helpful when we put this on the screen while we put this lyric on the screen? Is it helpful? Even like, say, a moving background versus a still background, or a person, or we're changing shots to an electric guitar, or we're changing shots to a background singer. Or is that helpful? Is that helping you see and experience and worship Jesus, and just let it lie where it lies? And so I'm all about now of going, let's let the word, and I know that the word, this is why there's no right and wrong answer, because we're not going to find, here's what you're supposed to do in your with your AV rig,
moving lights.
Yeah. We're not going to find that in Scripture. What we are going to find in Scripture, there's 1 Corinthians 2, chapter 2, verse 1 through 5. And when I came to you, brothers, I did not come proclaiming to you the testimony of God with lofty speech or wisdom, for I decided to know nothing among you except Jesus Christ and him crucified. And when I was with you in weakness and in fear and much trembling, and my speech and my message were not in plausible words of wisdom, but the demonstration of the Spirit and of power, so that your faith may not rest in the wisdom of men, but in the power of God. And that framing our services of going, we want people, Jesus looks exactly how he looks. Jesus is awesome in any place he is. God is always awesome in this place and in every place where God is. And so we don't want to make him look in any other way than what he looks like. And so it's, for us, a lot of it, and you hear this kind of language a lot of, we just want to get out of the way. Mm-hmm. And so the get out of wayness to our screens and our smoke and our subs and our volume levels and is all really important, so that Jesus would shine, would be lifted up, would be known, experienced, treasured, cherished. And I think that the main thing that we can do as worship teams and tech teams, and hopefully those conversations can happen together, is just have this conversation.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great conversation. I mean, the other every once in a while we're in a place, and this happened just 2 or 3 months ago. We're in a place. It's a pretty small room. I think maybe 700 people. But it was a real round room, so it wasn't deep at all. And people were just jam-packed in there. It looked like it would maybe 300 people should have fit, but somehow 700 people are in there, and we're on a stage, and there's screens, and we are bigger on stage for the person in the back row. So I'm bigger live. I'm larger live, and I'm raised up so they can see me, even if people are standing. I'm bigger and obviously a lot more clear live as Shane than I am on the screen. So the screen's smaller.
Yeah.
Like I'm smaller on the screen.
Yeah.
And and it wasn't synced up, like so it had a good quarter of a second delay. And I'm not a fan of being on a screen anyway. You could probably tell, those of you listening. But especially in this scenario, I'm like, you don't have to feel the pressure to go to when you go to a conference as a team, and to go, we need to apply this, or if you're videoing things so that folks online later on can pull it up and watch it, you feel the pressure maybe. Like, since we're doing that, we have guys and volunteers and things that we have to put it up on the screens because they're here.
Right.
We have the cameras. Well, you don't have to feel that pressure. Like, feel pressure. Feel the appropriate pressure to preach Christ and Him crucified and nothing else. Feel the pressure, but don't feel the cultural pressure to put something on a screen or create some kind of vibe that you saw happen somewhere else. You just don't have to feel that pressure.
Yeah.
We know churches that the lights are on all the way and people are facing each other as they sing through the Psalms. And there is an experience of Jesus through His word, the word of Christ dwelling richly in them as they teach and admonish one another. Literally, the congregation is facing each other in 4 different ways, and they're singing different parts, and so we've seen things happen where it's like you don't have to feel this unnecessary pressure from a Passion conference or a Hillsong conference, or we do a conference called the Linger Conference. I'm wearing the jacket. You don't have to feel the pressure from that, but rather say, here's my cards. As a worship team or a tech team or a pastoral team, here are our cards that God's given us.
Yeah.
It's not bad to say, hey, we need to upgrade this or upgrade. It's not bad to do that. But here today, this week, here's our cards. How do we use these to best preach Christ and Him crucified?
That's right.
And best celebrate Christ and Him crucified.
Yeah.
And best sing about and pray to the Christ who was crucified. And that's the biggest thing I've learned. And so I love being in places where they don't have a lot of tech, and I love being in places that they do have a lot of tech.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have anything to do with. It's just like it's going to be great. The church was really okay before we could plug speakers in.
Sure.
Not too long ago.
Sure.
They were fine. When we get together as a staff, there's a lot of us, and we don't plug anything in, and it's probably one of my favorite times of corporate worship.
Yeah.
And so you're going to be fine. Don't feel the pressure to have, man, it's like we don't have a great drummer, so we're just going to put him in there, this kid, because we need drums. It's like you don't need that. Yes, if you have someone who's gifted and they can serve to the glory of God and it's helpful and not distracting, God can use that.
Yeah.
And it's mysterious.
Yeah.
And it's crazy and it's amazing, but you don't need that. You don't need a smoke machine. You don't need an extra set of subwoofers, even though I love all those things.
Right.
But I also love it when those things aren't there, so that the people's faith might not rest in me or the wisdom of men or anything that we do, but the power of God. And God has shown himself over and over and over and over and over again. It's typically when I don't think he will, based on what kind of capabilities we have.
Sure.
So I think that's what I would have to say.
That's great. That's really helpful. Just like you said, there's not like we're not going to define this like really right and really wrong scenario with all of this stuff. It's just really helpful to think deeply, strategically, intentionally about all the tools that are in front of us. We talk about that all the time musically. Like, what tools are in front of you as an electric guitar player? And then how can you use those really intentionally to be really specific about how you're playing your role? And like, it's really fun to watch a lighting guy who loves the Lord way more than he loves running lights. But he's really gifted and really intentional about how they do it in a way to use those tools that are at his disposal to create something beautiful in order to not entertain or look awesome, but to like create something that looks beautiful to point to the most beautiful one.
Yeah.
Like that is exciting.
Yeah.
And someone who would also say like, yeah, we don't need any of this. Like when you can have that dialogue the same way you would have that dialogue with your worship team about the right view of what our role is and what our role is not.
Yeah.
Like how much we're needed. Like, man, have those, like, pursue that type of culture with your tech team and make it a one team, fight for it to be a one team culture where you feel like you're all supporting one another in how you can best use the tools that are at your disposal to focus on nothing but Christ and Him crucified.
Yeah.
And helping the body do the same.
And I think what you said just there is huge, Jeremy, in that we should be walking with our tech team and our video guys who are on the tech team as brothers and sisters who are ambassadors with us, co-laborers with us. And there is this huge gaping divide there in the church, and it's not surprising why. I mean, it's like, yes, we're artsy musicians. We kind of we like clothes, and we like to look this way, and it's just like, yeah, now I'm like 5 times my size up on this screen, and this is cool, and the lights look great, and you have tech AV guys who are like, man, I went to this conference. I'm gonna use my gifts to make this, and we're just here to say, the scriptures, the command and the privilege of walking as a son or a daughter of God applies to the tech guy as much as it applies to the worship guy.
Absolutely. And
I remember when I first came to Watermark, our sound guy got asked to, hey, can you? And he was a new sound guy here. But he's like, can you come up and pastor shepherd this person they're going through, and he's like, oh, what? Huh? I don't do that. I don't do that. I do this. I don't do that. What you just said. Yes, you do. And man, if we're just doing things so that we look awesome and our church looks awesome, and our gear, we use our gear in a way to, like, do anything else other than to say our God is real and good, and you can know Him. He saved you, man. It's all gonna go eventually bad for us.
Yeah,
because that stuff doesn't last, and it causes inauthentic experiences. And it creates a divide in you as a tech person when you go 3 years all of a sudden, and you're not doing things and being encouraged to walk in the light and then use lights to help people see Jesus, but you're just doing it. You're just doing it because you like gear and you're just doing it. And so I think it's like there's a huge responsibility as worship leaders and worship pastors to take a step into that world.
Yeah.
And that might not be like a 1 week thing. That might be, let me make a decision over the course of this year.
Sure.
That one of our goals we're praying for is that we are living missionally together as a tech team, volunteer tech team, worship team, and we're using all of these things to the glory of God. And maybe that, if you have the best of the best, maybe the best thing that you can do on a particular week is just get up there with an acoustic guitar and sing songs with a body and remind everybody of all the amazing gifts that God has given you at your church, whether that's small screens or big screens or 2 subs. It's all a gift. It's all just a huge gift. Whether you're setting up speakers on stands every week, that's just such a gift.
Yeah.
And whatever it is, it might be good to have a week of just stripping it down and going, man, all these things are a gift, but man, it is not a gift if it doesn't help us go run to this man, Christ Jesus. And when we leave, long for him, not long for the stuff again, not the temple again, not long to get into and have those things happen again, because we love the feeling in our chest when the kick drum pedal hits the, rubber meets the road. But when we get together and the word of Christ begins to dwell richly in us as we admonish one another and teach one another in song, and we just have a huge responsibility. And man, it's not the time to come about it flippantly and do something because the Joneses do it, but take everything that we have, hold it up against the scriptures and community, and just use it to the glory of God.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's great. Hope that was helpful for everybody listening in. Keep your questions coming. You can always send them to askshb@worshipinitiative.com. We love you guys. We're praying for you. We'll see you next time.
See y'all.
Bye.